Hi, today we are very excited to welcome Joop Slooff. Joop is a renowned aeronautical engineer and expert in fluid dynamics. He earned his aeronautical engineering degree from Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands in 1964 and completed the diploma course at the Von Karman Institute for Fluid Dynamics in Belgium. In 1965, Joop joined the National Aerospace Laboratory in Amsterdam as a research scientist, focusing on airfoil and wind design and computational methods. He became head of the Theoretical Aerodynamics Department in 1976 and later chief of the Fluid Dynamics Division in 1986, a role he held until retiring in 2001. A highlight of his career came in 1981 when Peter Van Osanen invited him to join the Australia 2 design team for the 1983 America's Cup. Joop proposed the concept that led to the famous upside-down wind keel and directed the computational work that proved its performance. In the 80s, he also contributed to keel research at Delft University and later served there as a part-time professor, teaching applied computational aerodynamics from 1987 to 2001. Joop served on several major national and international committees, including NATO's AGARD and RTO, the Von Karman Institute and Marine, among others. He delivered the 36th Lancaster Lecture for the Royal Aeronautical Society in 1996 and received the Von Karman Medal. Joop stayed active as a technical advisor for the ABN AMRO team in the 2005-06 Volvo Ocean Race edition, and later lectured on sailing, aero and hydrodynamics at Delft University. Thank you very much, Joop. It is a great pleasure to have you with us. We have discussed many times through emails, but this opportunity now that we have to talk directly with you, it is a great pleasure for us. And the first question I wanted to ask is does anybody call you Johannes still, or it is you go by Joop all the time?
Yeah, Joop. It is pronounced like an American would do when he sees the spelling Y-O-A-P.
Joop.
Joop, okay? Similarly, my last name, the double O in Dutch, is always sounds like an O. So if I spell it S-L-O-A-F, then it comes out pretty well with the English-speaking people.
So Joop Slooff.
That's it, Joop Slooff. That's it.
We would like to go through your life. So we wanted to start from your childhood when you were growing up in the Netherlands. So you are a Dutchman. So you were born in the Netherlands. I think it was in 1941. Did you have by that time? So later you become one of the leading aerodynamicists in the Netherlands and also in the world. But when this calling to follow this passion about engineering and aerodynamics started, is it something that you were interested also when you were young, or how does?
No, not really. I think I'm a product of war to begin with. I was born in the first year, at the end of the first year, or in the early beginning of the second year of the Second World War, in the southwestern corner of the town of Haarlem, that gave its name to Harlem, New York. 300 years ago, 400 years ago or so. And my father was an accountant, a financial auditor. Nothing that I got from my parents, except in a way, but I'll tell later, from my mother's side perhaps, suggested I would become something in science or aeronautics or anything like that. We lived not very far from the sea, though, and close to the inner part of the dunes that separate most of the province of North Holland from the North Sea, only 5 kilometers or so. So I went there quite often, of course. But no, nothing really in my early years sparked my curiosity in engineering or science, except perhaps that one of my grandfathers, who lived 100 plus kilometers further south, I stayed there maybe twice a year or so, for a week or 2 weeks sometimes. He was very good in making kites with a wooden structure and covered with paper. And he did that very well. And we went kiting many times when I stayed there with him. And he learned me also a little bit how to make those kites. So that may have sparked something that I've not been aware of really later. Until I started thinking about your question a couple of days ago.
So I suppose at what moment during childhood you saw that you were interested in engineering or in physics somehow. So when did you start to feel that call to the science part of the knowledge? Was something that it was easy understood by you, or you yeah?
Perhaps it was triggered. It was partly, at least my interest in aeronautics was triggered at the time when I was perhaps 6 or 7 years old or something like that. When a cousin of mine who studied at a aeronautical technical college in the town where we lived stayed with us for a while because he couldn't find a room or anything. He lived in the eastern part of the country. My mother was his uncle, so he stayed with us for a while. And I found it very interesting that he did things with aircraft and all that sort of thing. So that may have triggered a little bit also.
Kind of a role model maybe in the family. So then you went to the university and TU Delft, and you studied
Yes.
aeronautics. When many of us have this experience that we like the subject we are going to study, but at the beginning we find the university very rough. This is something because there are like the basic subjects, pure maths, pure physics, maybe also chemics and things like this. Did you have also this feeling that you wanted to become aerodynamics? How was your? Yeah.
The first, I should say, perhaps, that I've always wanted to become an airline pilot.
Okay.
Probably triggered by this cousin of mine who lived with us for a while. But when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I found out that was not going to happen because my eyes were not good enough. And at that point in time, I decided, okay, then I'll go for the scientific engineering side of aircraft. And that's when I decided that I would go to Delft. And I think that at about the same time, I already had decided that I was particularly interested in the outside shape, of aircraft, the wings and etc. So that I would eventually specialize in aerodynamics.
What was it like to go there,
Okay.
as a brand new student, and then kind of hit with all of the math, and then
I was pretty young. I was 70 years old only. Most students were older than I was.
Yes, yeah.
But maybe that is one of the reasons why I certainly in the first few years I found it pretty demanding, both in the sense of effort to study, as well as the efforts you needed to do in order to be sufficiently socially active, in the student works. It takes a hell of a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. But it is all, but of course, it was also very interesting and eventually very rewarding. So the most interesting subjects I think I found at the time in the first few years were physics in general.
Yeah.
And the most challenging subject, I think, because I always had the idea that I didn't know enough about mathematics,
Yeah, I've found the same and wished I knew more, always.
Yeah. Okay, but and the most exciting subject was that the faculty sort of triggered me, encouraged me, that's the word I was looking for, encouraged me to take flying lessons near Delft. You have the small airport of Rotterdam, which is not very far from Delft. And they encouraged me to take flying lessons, and they paid for it. Which is nowadays incredible. So eventually I got a simple private pilot's license, even flying without radio, with all everything very simple and primitive on a Piper Cup. That was as far as I went, but it was very exciting. And I remember that once I rented one of these Piper Cups myself and invited my wife to be. We were engaged, I think, at the time, for a flying survey over the Isles in the southwestern part of Holland, the province of Zeeland, in the southwestern area. So that was the most exciting part of my studies in Delft.
Did you fly as well then?
Yes, I got my license, and I was allowed to fly by myself. When I went with my wife, she was sitting in the back seat, and I was sitting up front, and I steered the whole thing.
Wow. So, Can I ask you a question about, again, just to comment on your experience at Delft? When was it when you were at Delft? Was it when computers kind of came into university, or was that after, or was it?
Maybe just a little bit after, or just about it. Maybe in the second half of my studies out there, it sort of started a little bit, I think.
Right.
I remember that later when I worked at NLR, we had pretty primitive computers out there also in the beginning.
Yeah.
There's one more point about Delft. On the social side, I was a member of the so-called Delft Student Corps, a sort of classical, conventional fraternity type organization. And I was also a member of the rugby club of that organization. So I played rugby as a scrum half. I'm not a big guy, but I was at the time I moved around pretty fast and unpredicted. So they couldn't get me as easy as they perhaps thought they could. And I was relatively successful in that. I even played twice in the Dutch national rugby team.
Oh, come on. Wow.
That didn't mean very much at the time, because I think there were probably only 100 or 200 or so rugby players at all in the Netherlands. Nevertheless, it was fun. It was fun.
Later, you came back to Delft as a professor, or the science of sailing as well. That was just in the later years of your career as well.
There's perhaps one thing that I should mention, because it had quite a bit of an important accent thing in my life, and that is that we moved house in 1953 to another house pretty close to where we lived, less than 2 kilometers away. But it turned out that our new neighbors had a boy who was my age. And we immediately found out that we had the same interests in aircraft in particular. And so it clicked immediately, and we shared all our experiences. And this boy has become my best friend ever after.
Okay.
And as I will tell later, he has also become my best sailing mate. But I'll tell about that later. We were both in that period of time, we also both members of something that you might call a kind of air cadet corps, sort of air scouts, you might call it. And we came together every Saturday afternoon at Schiphol Airport in the area here, and there was also an international exchange program between various air cadet organizations in different countries, the NATO countries, then in more specifically. We were both selected to participate in this international air cadet exchange. For me, that meant that in the summer of 1958, I went to the United States for 3 weeks. First, spending some days in New York City, then 2 weeks or so in the state of Ohio, and the last few days in Washington, D.C. That was, of course, a very interesting and thrilling experience for a 17-year-old boy, as you can imagine. In particular, in the time that, not like now, and America was a great example, you know, of the whole world and Europe and the Netherlands in particular. Unfortunately, that has changed, I'm afraid. But at that point in time, it was for me a super experience. Not in the least also, because when we were in Washington, I was able to visit the, what's the name of the museum out there? The Smithsonian Museum, which is a science museum. And in Dayton, Ohio, I was able to see the big Air Force Museum over there. You see all the aircraft that you have seen in papers and etc. You see them in the reality. And in Washington, all the foreign cadets that were there, including us, altogether maybe 75 young men of about my age, were invited in the garden of the White House, and we were addressed there. He stood only 10, 20 yards from me away by President Eisenhower at the time.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
It was just after the war. So 7 years, or 3 years after the war.
That was my preparation for going to Delft.
Wow. Interesting. It's great that you've been to the Smithsonian. I also have, and it is really just an eye-opening experience to see. Yeah, I was there just a few years ago. So the Space Shuttle Discovery was there. You know, and I don't think it was the original the flyer that the Wright brothers were in, because I think that was in a different somewhere else. But just to see how far we've come in 100 years. Do you know what I mean? From it's just incredible to imagine. And I know we're not talking politics here today, but I find it a very similar. As a Canadian, really. Like when I was growing up, I as a young man, I looked to, the NASA guys who were putting people on the moon and doing interesting things, and
exactly.
And it's a little sadder now. So
okay, very, very interesting. Did you keep flying, Joop? Did you keep flying for some years, or was
no? When after I left university, I had to pay for for maintaining my license myself. So I had to rent a little airplane and fly it around on my own cost. That was in the period that we were putting every penny aside, my wife and me, because we wanted to get married, So okay, we have to give this up.
Sacrifices you make, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got married in 1965, and also so you not flying this time, but you become very, very interested in sailing. And you bought your first sailing boat. You bought it with your brother together. It was years later. I think it was in 1977. So this is. Have you been sailing before that date, or was an idea that you have both?
this best friend of mine, the boy of our neighbors at the time, he had a small wooden dinghy, sailing dinghy. I was sailed with him every now and then, a few times a year. So that started maybe something also, but I didn't have the time or didn't have opportunities to really continue that on any reasonable scale until much later. But an important point that that you're also asking about in what you sent me is the VKI. After I got my bachelor in Delft, the dean of the faculty asked me to come and see him, and then he told me that he wanted that I went to the Van Karman Institute for a year. Mm-hmm. And everything would be paid for. I got a huge scholarship. I've never been so rich as a student as in that particular year. That I would say that was the most interesting year of all my whole study period. Mm-hmm. And one thing that happened that I think I should share with you also is that for some reason they asked me to become the student representative of the class of that particular year. Theodore von Karman still lived at the time, and he came to see the institute. I think he did that every year in January or February. And I had an opportunity to talk to him for about 15 minutes or so. And then, you won't believe it, a couple of months later, he died, Theodore von Karman. And I was asked to give a speech at his funeral, which was then planned to be in Aachen, in Germany. So I'd be sweating for a week or so what I was going to say.
Yeah, of course.
And then all of a sudden came the message that the whole scenario for his funeral has been changed, and that he was not going to be buried in funeral will not be in Aachen, but in Pasadena in California. So with a big sigh of relief, I stopped my preparations. But still, I think it feels very good that I've talked to Theodore.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And this is something over the years that you got also the medal of the von Karman Institute later on in your career, right? For all your contribution.
Yes.
So this is
later on. I have lectured myself at some of the special courses that I organize every year, and I also became a member of the technical advisory committee for the Van Karman Institute many years later. It's a place, an organization very close to my heart.
Okay, and I know, Joop, that you like very much the subject of sailing.
We got our first boat in 1977 because of my younger brother. I only have one brother. He's 6 years younger than I am. And he wanted to buy a boat, but he didn't have enough money to buy it. So when he told me, he said, "Okay, well, I can provide some money, and we can. It's interesting, and I can try it out with my family, to see whether we like it or not." And so we did. And within a few weeks or maybe a month, we were really addicted. We had become addicted to sailing with myself, with my family, my wife and the 3 kids. And then we decided to participate in the sailing for 50%, each half of the ownership, my brother and I. So that is how that started. And we had our boat in a small yacht harbor fairly close to the town of Medemblik at the IJsselmeer. Medemblik is a well-known regatta center where many races on the international races by international organizations are being held every year. And our old small yacht tower was pretty close to that. We could see it. It was just a few miles away, from where we had our boat. And as it happens, my best friend from my former neighbors, he also had bought the boat in the meantime, and he came with his boat in the same yacht harbor where we were. And from then on, every summer we did our holidays sailing in convoy with the two boats on the IJsselmeer. The IJsselmeer, that's the part in the water in the center part of Holland, behind the big dike. And that's where we started sailing, and that's where our yacht harbor is also. And we went to the lakes in Friesland, and then we went through the locks to the North Sea and sailed around the Frisian Isles all the way to Denmark. And we all did that in convoy with my best friend, Robert. So that was an important, that started all in 1977, that formed my brain also and habits in a substantial way, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And this is something important that you as you were saying, that we went through this first before starting the discussion with you. Winston and I saying that how important it is for bringing innovation to mix different point of views, that you had experience in sailing, but you were by career and by profession focusing on aerodynamics, but you were able to bridge both worlds, and this is what you did for the 83 America's Cup. So that experience that you have sailing, so it was the foundation of that innovation.
I found out pretty soon after I started sailing that I couldn't stop my brain from beginning to think, why the hell does that part of the boat look like that, Because my knowledge about wings and airfoils tell me it should be different. That process continued all through the years. And one of the first things that I realized was that no matter how hard you try, you can never create any hydrodynamic side force at the level of the water surface. Because there's atmospheric pressure all over the water surface. So you cannot generate any pressure difference between starboard and port at the level of the water surface. If you go away from the water surface, it's a different thing, of course. It's also a slightly different situation if you go very fast, high fruit numbers, and you start beginning to make significant waves with different water levels on port and starboard. But in particular, at low speeds, where there's no significant wave formation, it is this pressure equalizing effect of the atmosphere, the atmospheric pressure. That is the main factor. So then I concluded, okay, there's no point in having a big keel cord at the top, because how big you make it, it doesn't matter. You cannot generate any significant side force out there because of the atmospheric effect. So make the keel over there as short as possible, as long as it can support the whole system mechanically, so to speak, and put all the action as deep as you can. Just make the cords big, far away from the water surface. So that thinking was the essence behind the upside down keel that I conceived, and that I suggested to Peter van der Saanen as one of the things that we should verify whether my thoughts were correct or not.
Okay, so one question. So maybe going for later. So you have modified some of the keels of your boats. Did you modify already the keel of your boat before the campaign of '83? This is something that you were already playing with your own boat, with different keels, or?
I know I didn't have the money for that, to do that sort of thing, and but I was very happy that I got the opportunity through Peter van der Saanen to check out whether it was correct what I thought, you know. Incidentally, Peter and I had met a couple of years earlier in 78, 79 or so, when we were both members of a multidisciplinary working group for the Royal Dutch Navy, which was studying advanced ship configurations. And he was the representative of the Maritime Institute, Marine, and I was the representative for MLR, the Aerospace Institute. I don't remember why they asked me to represent them, but maybe they had heard that I was sailing, and that was good enough a reason.
Sure, yeah.
to put me in that committee. But that's when I first met Peter van der Saanen, and we found out we had a common interest in the science behind sailing during lunches of that committee, and that's when I told him also what my ideas were and what we could and that sort of thing. And he came back to that a couple of years later when he had the contract with the Australians.
Yeah.
The winglets came later. That came around 1980 or so, just before Peter van der Saanen asked me to join him in a design research for the Australians. And the reason was that they were very new at the time. And we were studying the application of winglets for aircraft in 1980, around 1980, so we knew exactly what that would do for an airplane, and I realized immediately that you put an airplane on its side, you put one wing in the water and the other one in the air, and you add winglets to the part in the water that. It reduces the induced drag just as well, if not more, than for an aircraft. So that's how that started.
So, Joop, something that we didn't mention, and I think it is important also to mention, is that you joined the National Aerospace Laboratory. So you mentioned as well, NLR in Amsterdam in 1965. It was the year that you got married as well. And you started like a research scientist. But you were focusing on airfoil and wind design, and also on computational aerodynamic methods as well. This is also interesting.
That's right.
So before you were saying that during your years in the university, computers were not readily available at that time, but by the time you were already working in the NLR, you were on computational aerodynamic methods, and also you became later in 1976, before the Americas campaign, you became the head of the Theoretical Aerodynamics Department there.
That's right.
And later in '86, you become also the chief of the Fluid Dynamics division, and you kept this position until.
It was in 1986.
And you held this position until retirement. So by the moment now that we are discussing about the campaign of '83's campaign, you were already the head of the department of the National Laboratory Research in the Netherlands for aerospace. Yeah.
Yes.
So Peter vamos a that we also have him on the show. So call you to get involved because you were both. So you met before in some meetings, and you explained that you have these ideas coming also from your own selling experience. And finally, you made some computations and you found, this is what I understood, that you found that you were able to reduce by 30% the induced resistance. So the induced or the resistance due to lift generation. So I suppose when nobody tried that before, maybe, and or you didn't know about that, at least when you found that it was possible. So I suppose it was like an eureka moment for you, or how was it?
It was, well, first of all, let me say that Peter gave me all freedom to define the configurations, the keel configurations that we were going to compute with our CMD computer program. And so, for example, I also, in my spare time, because the budget was very small, in my spare time, because I was very interested in the whole subject, I did the drawings for the wing keel on the kitchen table at home. And gave that to my co-workers at LR, and they made a mathematical panel, so-called panel model of it. And you've seen that pictures probably in several publications.
Yep.
And our computations already indicated a 33% or so reduction of induced drag, and it came out perfectly the same from our actual CFD computations at the time in 1981. This was primitive in the sense that it had only a very primitive representation of the effect of the free water surface. In fact, the only representation it had was this pressure equalizing effect of the atmosphere, and which disappears when you go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are comparing different configurations, different keel shapes with and without winglets and so forth, that gives pretty good incremental differences that are worth adopting and worth believing, at the time, even with such a simple model of the free surface effects. Well, as we know, it turned out perfectly when they did towing tank tests on the upside down keel without winglets, with on the upside down keel with the winglets, and turned out it worked.
I understand that when making some calculations, you came to the conclusion that in a roundabout racing for the America's Cup, so it was a difference about 1-2 minutes, which was the time that most of the American races were decided by 1-2 minutes. So that was the first time that maybe you started to understand that, well, we can maybe do it, right? It will be the first time that we can beat the Americans. I understand as well that you tried the keel, and also some kind of the hull was modified as well. In the after the aft part of the hull was also modified, and finally that was the last version that went into the production, which finally we all know the very great results. But one question I would like to put to you, Joop. So you were there during the moment of the race, so you were in some of the boats watching the races directly. But the two first races, the America 2 lost the two first races, so that should have been a kind of disappointment, I guess, right? Well, after all calculations and yeah.
I wasn't there during at the time of the first two races. Just before I left for Newport, I was sent to Newport by my big boss, the director of NLR, who was going to send me over there and paid for the trip, of course. And I had enough money myself, like I could pay for the ticket of my wife who joined me. But just before we left from here, we heard that they had lost the first race. And when we arrived in Newport, we heard that they had also lost the second race. It turned out rapidly that both cases were caused by mechanical failures. One was in the first race, where there was a mechanical failure in the steering system, and the second race there was a mechanical breakdown in the headboard of the sail.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I remember I said, "My God, how is it possible that these guys do not check these essential structural elements before they start sailing?"
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's right. You did the heavy lifting, and then they were failing just for a small nuts and no.
Yeah. Okay. But then I said, optimistic as I was, okay, no problem. There are 4 more opportunities to come, to repair that all. And that's how it happened, except for one race. There was one race, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but the Australians got, as we say, their ears washed on a terrible way. Dennis Conner and his crew flawlessly sailed the Australians into oblivion, as I say it, by supreme tactical and sailing skills. I've never seen anything like that before. It was not really obvious what errors, what mistakes the Australians were making. It was just a matter of absolutely flawless sailing by the Americans.
Yeah, Pablo and I were talking about that earlier, actually, about it is a testament to Dennis Conner and his team to be able to compete against. They didn't have the technological advantage, but the team is obviously still just an amazing, good team, right? So, yeah. Then the fact that Australia too did win really tells you something about. I mean, yes, they had a great team, of course, but the technology was superior, right? So, yeah, you bet.
And then he did also a very big comeback for the next one. I think it was in 1987 that the American team won again. And I think you guys started the technological revolution for the America's Cup, right? Because before it was like, well, let's sit down and make some drawings, for the 12 meters class, as we have always done. But when they understood that you put into science into the process, and there were calculations and test tanks and everything, everybody changed their mind and say, well, now we cannot compete anymore like we did before. And everybody started to introduce more mathematics later on, CFD and so on. And this is how it has evolved now to America's Cup today. And you were the initiators because of that 1983 campaign that you successfully won. So
well, and see where it's evolved to is incredible. Really, I mean, it's more aerodynamics than it is anything, almost. Yeah.
What I found something rewarding, like after the 1987 races, is that the Stars and Stripes team wrote a big article in the Scientific American about how they developed Stars and Stripes 87 and so forth. One of the things they wrote was that they first tried to copy the keel of Australia too, and then tried to improve upon it. And they wrote that whatever they tried, they were not able to make any substantial improvements over that configuration. If I said, okay, then I've done a good job at the time.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Australia too still lose the fourth one, but then so finally they won the 3 in a row, and they finally won. And they started this. Well, it was before the race, right? This controversy about nationalities, so that teams at that time there was the rule that you only can have people in the team from the country which is competing. How you went through all this kind of controversy that finally fade away, but.
I looked up my own notes, old notes, from that period. I collected them a little bit. Until the summer of 1983, I mean, the press started writing about it from the first minute that Australia took the water, and it was with all the skirts around it, etc. And it was rather amusing for the next year or so to see what they wrote and thought and fantasized about it. It was sort of amusing. And then when it became a little bit less amusing, when both the Americans and the Australians began to put me under pressure. The Americans, because they wanted me to sign the statement that I designed the keel, and the Australians, a little later, when we were in Newport, did very nasty things. And then we were getting annoyed, is not a good word. At a certain point in time, we became even scared. I remember that after one of the events that the Australians orchestrated, so to speak, Warren Jones in particular, my wife said, "Let's get out of here. I'm getting afraid. These people go over dead bodies. I don't want it to be your dead body," she said to me. I said, "Okay." I mean, we tried to leave the gas boat that we were on to start watching the races, but it was just leaving from the pier, so and it was too far away to jump from the boat on the pier. So we, and then that was the race. That was the race. Then Dennis and his crew sailed them into oblivion and flawlessly. And so when we came off the boat at that particular day, I said, "Okay, it's over. We might as well go home."
I think by the moment, so they understood, so Australia too were beating all the contenders as well. So they started to find for possibilities, saying, well, if that was following the rules or not. I think the first one, it was regarding the length of the keel, because of the winds. So it was like when healing, they were considering that it was not in the measurements, but finally that was definitely say that it is actually following the rule. Second one was the nationality, but finally they were a votation and they decided to go to the race because it was more the sportsmanship that that was requiring just to go and race and see who is the best. So you also, I think Joop, that was your last involvement with America's Cup, right? But you have been involved also later, years later, with the Volvo Ocean Race, and you have been also working with a team. Yeah,
that's right. In sometime in the 1990s, I was approached by Roy Heiner. Roy Heiner was a professional racing yachtsman, an Olympic medalist in the Finn class, at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. And sometime in the late 60s and late 1990s, he came to see me and asked whether I would like to help him in setting up a Dutch America's Cup effort. I said, okay, no problem. So we tried to set up something, but it didn't work out. couldn't raise all the money needed, so that did not materialize. Then he, I think he sailed a couple of legs in a windbread around the world race a year later or something like that. And again, a year later, around 2000, he started a sailing academy in this town. There's a regatta town of Medemblik.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote a course on the aerodynamics of sailing for this sailing academy. And then it must have been in 2002 or 2003. I remember I was on the top. I was in Australia at the time, standing on the top of this huge metal red mountain in the center of the center of Australia, and my phone rang, and it turned out to be Roy Heider, who wanted to tell me that he had succeeded in getting the ABO and Amro Bank to sponsor and finance a new Dutch effort for the next Volvo Ocean Race. Mm-hmm. And he would very appreciate it if I would help him as a technical scientific advisor. So on top of the Uluru is the name of this mountain, on top of Uluru, I said, okay, that sounds great. Okay, you can count me in. So that's how I got involved in that.
Uh-huh.
And I worked together. Now and then I visited his office in Valencia also a couple of times with Juan Coyumijon.
Yep.
A person that you know very well, I suppose. And I was much impressed by the way he was working and how he had his team and all that sort of thing. And they were highly qualified to do the design for the ABN AMRO boats. Mm-hmm. Eventually, there was only one point where I could do something useful because they were not aware of certain physical mechanical phenomena that usually do not occur in naval architecture problems. That was keel flutter and limit cycle oscillations. I had read already that many boats of the Open 60 class that were doing ocean racing, that was the predecessor of the, what is the current class? That's the IMOCA, yeah? That was the predecessor of the IMOCA class. But most of these Open 60s were losing their keels during the ocean races in one way or another. And I began to realize how that came about. It was a matter of it's a structural dynamic problem of the same sort that aircraft wings with engines mounted on it, or even with other gadgets mounted to them, can experience. That can express itself in two different ways. Can be an immediate catastrophic collapse of the structure, which is the flutter aspect, the flutter variant, or if it is the whole system is somewhat neutrally stable, it will still oscillate all the years that are being sailed with that construction, until the fatigue loads have ruined the material, and it breaks down. The keel breaks off due to fatigue, structural fatigue blowers.
Mhm.
And I told Juan that the way to avoid that, is to move the bulb forward relative to the keel. For exactly the same reason, the engines of aircraft that are mounted on aircraft wings are hanging in front of the wing, and not immediately under it or something like that. So that probably saved the ABN boats. None of the two boats had any problems with the keel. All the other boats, I think, of that Volvo Ocean Race event at the time, had more or less serious problems with their keel construction. So that was my useful contribution, I think, to that effort.
Are you referring to the canting keel of the IMOCA or the Open 60?
Yeah, but that was all canting keels, yeah.
Okay. Which
the Volvo Ocean Race boats of 2005, 2006 also had canting keels.
Yeah. So that when the boat loses the keel, so they all capsize actually. Yeah, so that there were many accidents at that time. So yeah,
one of the boats that lost the keel had their crew picked up by one of the ABN boats that happened to be not very far away, and they could put all the other and the whole crew of the boat that lost its keel on the ABN boat that still had its keel.
Yeah.
The boat, I have a little model of that boat.
We can see. And I have also some picture here that it's coming from a book.
It's this model.
And this is the one.
Oh yeah, right.
And you have the retractile keels here for lateral force, and the other keel mainly for stability, right? The canting keel, yes.
This is a little model of the boat that I still have. The other model here, that's a classical boat, fishing boat, sailing fishing boat from the southwestern part of the country, made by an uncle of mine who was a ship's carpenter and was running a small repair wharf somewhere in the southwestern part of the country, and he made that model for me.
Okay, and that's maybe also one thing apart. So I think that the English word yacht, and then in Spanish we say yate, for example, is coming from Dutch, a Dutch word, right? It is the Dutch who invented the yacht or yachting, and this is later become. I don't remember exactly the word in Dutch, but later it expanded to English. So you invented basically the word.
Exactly, that's right. It started in the 17th century. A yacht was then a small, fast messenger boat between the big boat of the admiral, during the wars with Spain in particular, all these water wars with Spain and with the English and so forth. And they brought a message from the admiral ship to the shore. And they were called yachts. And they were relatively fast. And they later became they were also used for pleasure functions. That's how it started.
Okay. One question. So you were also involved with some research at Delft with professors Koenig and Gerritsma. That I remember years ago looking for papers for sailing boats because I was very interested. I'm still very interested. All of these papers coming from Delft, and Gerritsma and Koenig are like the most important things that you can find there. And you were working with them also in keel.
Yep. In the second half of the 1980s, I helped them a little bit with the these Delft systematic series on the towing tank testing that they were doing, and advised them a little on what sort of configurations to test also as far as keels were concerned. And I find that an interesting contact at the time. Later, in the now we have it about the period of 2008 to 2013 or so. Gerritsma was already with retirement a long time, but Lex Koenig was still active. He organized then for many years after each other a special course on sailing yacht design every year at the maritime faculty. And they had asked me to give the lectures on the aero and hydrodynamics as part of that course. In the meantime, I was retired, and so I had enough time, and that activity kept me off the streets, as they say, for. And it was nice, also the context with the students and so forth. It was during that period also that people began to say to me that I should wrap up all these courses that I had written, and particularly also all the sheets, the PowerPoint sheets I had made for the course at Delft, and make a book out of that. So I said, "Oh, why not? Maybe if you think there's an interest in it, okay, I will do that." And so after 2010 or so, I think I started also working more seriously on my first book, the Aero Hydrodynamics of Keel Yachts. And I had that ready around Christmas in 2014. And then it turned out that Springer had thrown it, as we say, over the fence to some software house in India to adapt the layout to the layout that they wanted for the Springer publication. And these guys in India made a tremendous mess of it. Impossible to publish it like that. So I had to put a lot of other new effort in order to correct all that. It was almost a year later that it was really published. And in the meantime, while they were working on that, I spent a couple of months only on writing my little boy's adventure on the Americoscope story.
Yeah. This is a book I have here. As you can see, I usually go and check things. I find this book very interesting. And that was the book that you created after your Springer one. So this is yeah.
After I did this little book, I think I first made a book about genealogy, genealogy,
Yeah.
of my difficult word of this. And that's finished, by the way, also. Incidentally, I'm working on a book on my own ancestors.
Yeah.
But in 2019, I made this new edition with a new title that I published myself through KDP Amazon with a few new subjects like foiling and so on.
This is quite a unique, I think, book and an approach, because we can see all your experience from aerodynamics put here, and there are a lot of graphics and a lot of relationships within variables, and so there are things that you cannot find in some other courses or books that I find very, very interesting. So and this is also one of the reasons we entered into contact many years ago, and I'm very happy that we did so. And during all this year, we have been in contact, sending messages and so on. So, and I can say that it is a really, really very good book on my side. And I have also this question, but you answer that you were working, at least we know from several years ago, you were working on the genealogía, we say in Spanish, of your wife, because you found that there is like a knight in the family and you wanted to know more about that. So was it confirmed?
You wouldn't believe it, but if you start searching further and further, turns out we all carry genes of Charlemagne. You know,
Okay. I guess he was very prolific.
you guys probably also. We are all related.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. One of these nights, that was one of the ancestors of my life, was also came also from the Charlemagne side, but. I think it's an interesting subject. You learn a lot of history when you're looking at that sort of things also.
Yeah. I have ancestry from northern France and southern England, so that's you're probably not far off. Yeah. Yeah, you bet.
When I did my own research on my own ancestors, I found out I have Northern Atlantic Celtic DNA.
Really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
And the most recent mutation that I have developed either in Ireland or in Scotland, probably, they think.
Interesting.
Okay, so Celtic.
There could be two different ways how I have that kind of DNA. One is that somebody from the British Isles came back to the mainland, 3,000-4,000 years after his ancestors crossed the English Channel. But that could have been the case in two different ways. I know there were commercial contacts, shipping contacts between some harbors in the northeastern part of Scotland, and for example, the harbors in the southwestern part of the Netherlands, the province of Zeeland. One of these shipmates may have slipped somewhere. But another possibility is that the Vikings had always many Celtic slaves on board of their vessels, their dragon ships. And one of these Celtic slaves, rowers, might have jumped overboard when he saw the coast, close to the Dutch coast, and swam to the shore. And he may be one of my ancestors also. I don't know.
Yeah, we might be also related, because I'm coming from the north side of Spain. It's Asturias, and part of the family is from the Basque Country. Yeah. And today there are 7 nations, or traditional nations, Celtic nations. There is Brittany in France. There is Scottish. There is the Isle of Man as well. But there is also in Spain, there is Galicia and Asturias, the regions where I'm coming from. And we also, people are very surprised sometimes that we say that we also have flutes or bagpipes also. They are not the same that the Scottish, for example, but we have also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have the culture of the Celtics are in the north side of Spain. Mm-hmm.
The DNA of the Galicians is very close to my DNA, I think.
yeah, might be, but because of this Celtic background and everything. Are you still sailing, Joop, or are you still going to sail sometimes?
Yes or no? 2 years ago, I gave a boat to my daughters. and they are now sailing with it. I help them every now and then with some maintenance work.
And this is your second boat where you design also the keel and the rudder, and we make wings for rudder. It is your own design, and you put it there, and you can dry out actually when in the tides.
We bought that new boat in 1986, and I wanted a boat with a wing keel for reasons that you will understand. But I configured it in such a way that we could dry out upright when the tide was gone, and particularly because we sailed very often in the tidal waters between the Frisian Islands and the mainland. And it's very convenient that we can dry out without falling on one side. You have to check before the water is gone that it's a bit equal, the bottom, and not many. So we did it always, but it was configured in such a way that as long as the bottom does not heel more than 30 degrees, you have no problem.
Yeah, I saw that picture that you had in your book. Actually, you have a picture of the thing upright in the book, and I thought to myself, that vessel would be perfect for the Bay of Fundy here in Canada, because the Bay of Fundy empties right out, and of course the boat would be perfect standing up there. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ideal.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was clever. Yeah, that's right.
That's it. Yeah.
That picture. Yeah.
I put also wings on the rudder to prevent that when the rudder was on soft sand, for example, that the boat would
sink in,
heel backwards too much. So these little wings on the rudder, which also improved the rudder efficiency, by the way. But the main function was to prevent that the boat would sink its rudder in soft sand.
Okay. Are you following up the America's Cup, Joop, or are you a follower? Are you?
I do not follow it daily and very thoroughly, but the sad thing is that there's no American contestant now anymore. I understand, because the New Zealanders and the British have set up their own version of the rules of participation, which is not acceptable for the Americans, which is a sad thing. I
think so too. Yeah,
I think the only good way would have been to handle this sort of thing already in the past. Also, I think in some cases, is that these rules are being written up by an independent group of people.
And
that everybody will have to agree with, if you want to participate in the America's Cup rules. And I think they also should always keep the freedom in defining the technical rules of the boat to such an extent that it leaves room for innovation. That has always been a major point in the America's Cup world, and they should certainly keep it like that, I think.
Okay. Now that you can see your career. This is again one of these episodes when we are discussing, and it is so incredible, all the things that you have gone through, and so inspiring. Even you met von Karman and you were called to talk. This is completely new for me. I didn't know about that. So how do you see your career now from now? It's just something that you expected, something that you say, well, I should have planned this way, or?
I haven't planned it anyway. There are so many factors that you do not know before that, so it's impossible to really plan things. A planned thing was in the sense that when I could not be an airline pilot, I went into the technical scientific side, of aeronautical, the aeronautical world. That was planned. But from there on, it's
Everything is
impossible.
surprise.
So there are so many things that happen on the way, where you have to make choices and accept things or reject them if you don't like it, etc., etc. And but looking backward, I think that if I had to do my life again, over again, that perhaps a few exceptions, I would do it exactly the same as I experienced it in reality.
Okay, so what about tennis? Are you still playing tennis and golf, or how? I'm very interested in this question because I also play tennis, and I know that it is one of your sports. Are you still playing tennis?
I'm still playing tennis once a week,
Okay.
in the summer outside, of course, and but now in the winter time and inside in a big hall. I still do that once a week with other old men, and I'm also still playing golf. Somewhat less frequent the past 2 years than I used to do, but I try to do it once a week with my wife, who is also still trying to play some golf. And when the weather is nice, even in the winter, it doesn't freeze, it doesn't rain, or there's no big wind, that we go outside and play a 9 holes little round. So
Okay. Yeah, this is here in Finland. I have a friend that also plays golf, but the season has ended or is about to end because it's now going to snow very soon, or a lot of weather still. So now golf, the season has ended, and he's very sad because he cannot play until and the next season. So okay, Joop, has been really a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I said before, so I get to know you through these last years, and for me it has been an honor and a great pleasure to count with you as one of the friends of NavLab, and with the book and all the emails we are exchanging, so interesting, and also with this conversation. We thank you very much for this fantastic time that we have together and all the things you explained. What we wanted to do in this kind of conversations is we want to inspire young people and people that would like to have the same interest that you had, being a young, to not thinking twice and decided to go this way because it is a way of adventure. It is a way of many possibilities as well, and they can develop careers so interested as the one that you have, for example. So thank you very much, and yeah, till next time.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like to add that I'm quite impressed by the professional way you guys have set up the whole naval up effort. And if you keep going like this with new aspects, treating new aspects every now and then, I think you'll be very successful, and I congratulate you with that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're going to keep trying to do this. We have many challenges, we have to say, but we are not going to stop to do it. So thank you very much for the encouragement. Thank you, Joop.
Okay.